warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nurul Agustin. I'm going to explain my thesis under the title Students' Perception on Teacher Strategies in Teaching Speaking Skill at SEMHAS in academic year 2019 until 2020. The first chapter, Chapter 1, there are background of the research until definition of key term. Background of the research. English is foreign language. As a foreign language in Indonesia, English is learned seriously by many people to have good language that used in everyday life. English has 4 basic language skills, namely listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Speaking is important part of language. As we know that speaking is one of 4 basic language skills. Most people may spend their everyday life to communicate with other people. To communicate with other people, the speakers need to use the good language so the listener will understand what we are saying. Speaking is a productive skill. According to Brown 2004, page 140, speaking is a productive skill that can be directly and empirically observed. Productive skill involves us in a production of message, both oral and writing. Most students feel that speaking is difficult. The students feel that speaking is very difficult because they are not usual to communicate using English language. The student can speak English language and some students know the grammar, but they feel difficult to express. This makes students lose interest in learning speaking skill. Strategy of teaching speaking. The strategy of teaching speaking is in the main in successful or failure of teaching learning process. In teaching speaking, there are many strategies such as role play, discussion, telling story, describing picture, and etc. Teachers should apply creative strategy to develop student ability to speak, so students are more confident when speaking in English language. And the next, problem of the research. How are the students' perception on teacher strategies in teaching speaking, and are the students interested in speaking strategies? And the next, objective of the research, to describe students' perception of teacher strategies in teaching speaking and to describe above students' interest in speaking strategies. And the next, significance of the research, limitation of the research, and definition of key term. Chapter 2, there are perception from January 2009 until review of previous research. Review of previous research from Safrizal 2017, Lamatokan 2018, and the last from Saliha 2017. Then, Chapter 3, there are research design until schedule of the research. Research design. There are 2 types of research design, quantitative and qualitative research method. In this research, the researcher used descriptive, qualitative as the research method. Research setting. In this research was conducted at SMA Asada Mugangerse. Population and sample. The population of this research is 287 students of 10 graders SMA Asada Mugangerse, and the sample of this research 27 students of language class. And the next, technique and instrument of collecting data. Due to of COVID-19 pandemic that made it impossible to meet in person, the technique of collecting data was conducted by online. The first, questionnaire. In questionnaire, the researcher gave the questionnaire to students via WhatsApp group. And in questionnaire, the researcher got all of the data of questionnaire with a total of 27 students. And the next, interview. Due to of COVID-19 pandemic, so researchers were limited in taking interview data. The interview just were done with 21 students in personnel. The process of interview was carried by smartphone via chatting and phone call. And the next, data analysis. There are data reduction, data display, and conclusion drawing or verification. And the next, research procedure. The first is research preparation from finding the title until seminar proposal, and the second stage is research implementation. In research implementation, collecting the data, questionnaire and interview, and the last, research report, analysis the data until final report. And this is a table schedule of the research from November 2019 until July 2020. Chapter 4, there are research finding, discussion, and interpretation of the research. Research finding. The first, the finding of questionnaire. This table about
The basic question of English. There are 19 students like English lesson. The students say the English is important and need to be liked because English is an international language that must be mastered. Then there are 15 students are interested in English lesson and 25 students say that there were difficulties in English lesson. Students said it was difficult in tenses and in their pronunciation. And then 26 students say that teacher always motivates students to always speak English language. The next table about the student perception on teaching, speaking and teaching strategy. Certain students like speaking and enthusiastic material when studying, and 24 students say that speaking was difficult to pronounce. And the next, only 8 students understood the speaking material explained by the teacher. And 20 students said that teacher always gave stimulus before starting English lesson. Then 18 students said that teacher often gave problem to light discussion material in learning process of speaking. And 20 students state that teacher always used English language when teacher explained about material. And the next 26 students say that teacher using strategy when teaching speaking skill. And the last 19 students feel that the strategy used by the teacher in teaching speaking was interesting. The next, the finding of interview. The first, English is important. All of students say that English is important and must be learned. Aside from English, it is an international language. English is also needed in work relationship, and it's also a necessity in this world. So students feel they have to study English actively so they can master English well. And the second, the teacher always gave a stimulus and review the previous subject before the lesson. 80% students say that teacher always give a stimulus to students in the form of English song. In addition to providing stimulus, the teacher also review the lesson that have been given at the previous meeting. And the third, the teacher used English language 50%. Teacher also used Indonesian language to help students who still did not understand the meaning of English, and 50% students lack of understanding with the teacher explanation. Students argue that the teacher explanation was unclear and too fast, so students feel they do not understand. And the next, student interest and difficulties when learning English. Students are interested in the way teacher when teaching English, but all of students feel the English was very difficult. 76% student like speaking material, and 66% student interest when speaking material. By learning speaking, students are able to increase their confidence and make it easier for them to pronunciation of vocabulary. And the next, there was always an evaluation at the end of the lesson. The teacher always provide correction and evaluation at the end of the lesson. It was help students to understand the material that has been given. And the last, 66% student interest on teacher strategy. Usually, teacher used various strategy, so students feel happy with the strategy that used by teacher. Students feel that the strategy helped to understand the material and increase student enthusiasm for speaking material. And the next discussion. The first statement of the problem aimed to describe students' perception on teacher strategies in teaching speaking skill. All of students say that teacher used various strategies such as group discussion, role play, information gap, brainstorming, storytelling, and picture describing. When teacher applies this strategy can help students to develop teamwork. They can exchange opinion, improve their skill, and share their good idea. Besides, this strategy can increase creativity. This strategy also helps students to increase their confidence to speak in front of many people. And the second statement of the problem aims to describe student interest in speaking strategies in language class. The researcher made several indicators to assess student interest. The first, most students like speaking material because speaking is an easy skill to learn. Although speaking material is difficult in pronunciation, but students feel too challenged to be able to master the material. And the second, 50% of students say that they were less enthusiasm about speaking material. They think that speaking was difficult, and some students also said they do not like speaking learning in class. They feel bored and want to feel new things to increase their speaking ability. And the third, 50% of students said that they did not understand what the teacher had explained, and 69% of students feel interested in the way of teaching the teacher. Students argue that the teacher explanation was unclear and too fast, so students feel they do not understand. And the students are interested because when there was material that is not understood by students, the teacher will re-explain the material until students understand. The last 73% from questionnaire and 66% from interview, students say they were interested in the strategies used by the teacher in teaching speaking skill. They give reason that speaking is easy to understand, and the strategy used by the teacher are cool and make students easy to understand. They feel enjoy when learning takes place. And the next, interpretation of the research. The first from Saf Rizal with the title Teacher Speaking Strategies at Vocational High School. Previous research and this research had a little in common. In this research, the researcher also used several variations of the strategies that are able to help students to improve their speaking skill. And the second from Lamatokan with the title Student Perception Toward Teachers' Teaching Style and the Use of Learning Strategies in Teaching English. The previous research was very different from this research. In this research, the researcher not only see the success of teaching, but also through the interest and enthusiasm of students to join the teacher in teaching in speaking material. The students feel enjoy when learning takes place because many strategies that apply by teacher. And the last from Salia with the title Teacher Strategies in Teaching Speaking at the Daffodils. The previous research and this research has some similarities and differences. The similarities with this research seem focused on the strategies that used by teacher in teaching speaking. The difference from this research was the method of obtaining the data.
Chapter 5, there are conclusion and suggestion. Conclusion. The first, the student satisfied with the strategy applied by teacher. Actually, the teacher used various strategies such as discussion, role play, information gap, brainstorming, storytelling, and picture describing. This strategy applied in different meetings. And the next, 73% from questionnaire and 66% from interview, students are interested with the strategies that used by teacher. Then, suggestion, the first for students. For students, the first, student must to enrich vocabulary so student can speak fluency. And the second, when the teacher explains the material, it can be heard and understood well, so that this was easy to understand what was explained by teacher. And the second for teacher, the first, when explaining the material to be as clear as possible, so student can understand what the teacher means. And the second, when students are wrong in pronunciation, the teacher should correct the tells and tell student how to pronounce it correctly. And the last, for future researcher, the researcher suggests to other researcher who will conduct the research using the same topic but different strategies. Future researcher hopefully find out more detail about strategies in teaching speaking skill, because there are other strategies that have not been discussed yet in this research. Okay, that's all about my presentation. Thank you so much for your attention, and the last I say, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.